Lucy's Kitchen, it's Lucy's Kitchen. She's Lucy and she's got a kitchen. Lucy's Kitchen.
And now that we've got your attention, let's cook. Hi there. Welcome to Lucy's Kitchen. I'm Lucy, and this is my kitchen. Today we're going to make German style red cabbage with apples, onions, and bacon. This is a wonderful dish that goes with so many things. Roast pork, grilled sausages, brisket, a roast chicken, you name it. This is a great dish and it's super easy. And I'll teach you how to make it in a minute. First of all, let's talk about our ingredients. Obviously, red cabbage. One head of red cabbage is about 2.5 pounds. We've quartered it, and this is a quarter. And then what we do is we take our knife and just take it on the angle and take the core out. So we're going to take the core out, okay, core is gone. And then we just slice it very thinly. It's good if you have a sturdy knife. It's very sharp, and watch your fingers. So we're just gonna do that, and we're just kind of doing a shred. And this is so that it cooks evenly and tenderly. Now about halfway through, I'm just gonna flip it around and make it a lot easier on myself. And that's it. So we've done a similar thing with our apples. We've got apples that are quartered, cored, and thinly sliced. We've got 2 apples here. They're very fresh and delicious, and I didn't even bother peeling them. Ultimately, once this is cooked, they're going to be very tender, and the peels give you a few extra vitamins while you're, not even noticing that they're there. So we're going to leave them on, and also they're attractive. Another thing we've got is onions. Now I used a nice Vidalia onion, and I just cut it in half and thinly sliced it. We want the nice thin slices. We've got a smashed clove of garlic. We're going to cook that in a minute along with the onions, and some of our spices, our caraway, a little bit of allspice, salt and pepper, of course. And then I have some sugar. Now sugar is going to bring out the sweetness of our dish, and it's going to be a beautiful counterpoint to some of the savories in here. So far, we've got cabbage, we've got onions. Those are savories, and we're going to also have a little bit of balsamic vinegar. Now, some people like to use regular vinegar or apple cider vinegar. I like balsamic because it's a little sweeter and actually gives that beautiful balance of sweet and tart. And I've got a little bit of very rich broth and some white wine. And the highlight of our dish, of course, is bacon. Now, I used a really good quality, thick sliced bacon, about 1/4 to 1/3 of a pound, maybe 3 or 4 slices of bacon. I diced it up and I cooked it in a very heavy pot for quite a long time over a low heat, because what I wanted was the bacon to be very crisp and to render out all the fat. So we've got a really tasty bacon here without any of the chewiness. It's just going to be the bacon. It's crispy and just what we want, and we're going to enhance our dish with this bacon. So we're holding it aside until later. In the meantime, the bacon fat is still sitting in the pot and it's waiting for us to cook our other ingredients in. So let's go on over to the stove and we'll get started on making the red cabbage with onions, apples, and bacon. Okay, here we are. I've been heating up the bacon fat, and it is now nice and hot. I'm going to turn it down, and the first thing I'm going to throw in is the sugar. We're going to just put the sugar in so that everything else that goes in caramelizes along with the sugar. Now, we don't want it to caramelize right away. We just want it to start adding its beautiful glaze to our other ingredients. So we just stir it around because we want the sugar to dissolve. It doesn't take very long. It takes a minute or so. And really, that does a couple of things. It prepares the oil to start glazing the vegetables from the beginning. Now we don't want to brown the sugar because, of course, that'll happen as we move along. So as soon as it's just about dissolved, we add in our onions. Now we very slowly, over low heat, put the onions, stir them around until they start to get translucent. And now I'm going to add the smashed garlic. So now what's happening is the onions are giving up a little juice and they're softening up. And that's just perfect. That's exactly where we want to be. Next, our apples. So just toss the apples. Make sure that they get covered with the bacon fat and the sugar. They're going to get a little bit of a glaze. And we just want to soften them for about a minute, because if you have too much cooking, they'll get mushy, and you don't want them mushy. You want them to stay a little bit crisp, at least in the beginning. Now, they will soften up significantly through the cooking. Oh, you could just eat this. This is delicious smelling and I'm sure tasting. You cook this down and you've got a really interesting apple onion compote. Maybe we'll have to do a show on that. Okay. A lot of cooking is happy accidents in the kitchen. Now I'm going to turn it up and I'm going to add the cabbage. And the cabbage is so amazing. It's hard to believe that this will ever cook down into anything. But it will. So at this point, I just want the cabbage to soften up a little. I'm going to turn it way down and I'm just going to cover it. And I'm going to let it cook for a minute. Okay, we've been steaming our pot for about 3 or 4 minutes because I want the cabbage to release some of its juices so it's easy to toss with the glaze. And I think red cabbage is beautiful, don't you? Look at that, it's gorgeous. It's such a pretty color. And the top, of course, is still quite firm, but underneath it's definitely starting to wilt a little bit. And so we're just going to gently and carefully turn it and bring some of the apples up and some of the onions up. And that is absolutely marvelous. Now, you can also use the tongs if you have trouble tossing it. And it's not super, super important at this point that it's all tossed, but I like to get it evenly glazed before we go to our next step. Pull those apples up and the onions, and everything smells fantastic. All right, that's probably good enough. Now I'm going to start adding some of my savories. First of all, I'm going to throw in a bay leaf. Bay leaves just give it a nice earthy, spicy kind of flavor. They're very subtle, and one bay leaf will give it just the right amount of spice. Then, as I mentioned, I have a teaspoon of caraway and just a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. And I'm going to sprinkle that over the whole thing. And then I'm going to just go ahead and add the white wine. And I've got some very rich broth. So I've got a 1/2 cup here. I'm only going to use a 1/4 cup now, and I'll save a 1/4 for later in case we need to add a little liquid. But the flavor of this is quite delicious. Put that there. And that's it for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover. I'm making a lot of noise today. We're going to cover this and let it simmer for about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and add the rest of the ingredients. So I've been checking our cabbage to see how it's doing, and it's cooking down a little quicker than I expected. Right now, it's been cooking for about 10 to 15 minutes, and it's cooking down nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and add the other ingredients right now. First of all, look at the bottom of the pot and see how much liquid is down there. This is where we want to see if it needs a little bit more. And I think as it cooks along, it's going to definitely give up more liquid. Now you can see that it has cooked down quite a bit. So for now, we'll just let this simmer on the lowest heat, covered of course, and need a mitt because it's still hot. And we'll come back just before it's time to be finished with this. Okay, well, as you can see, this has cooked down beautifully. It's glazed with the marvelous juices. I've added the other quarter cup of broth, and I've also added the salt and pepper. And now I'm going to add the bacon, because I think we want this to permeate the flavor of this dish. And so it's very crispy, and it won't hold its crispiness so much as it will hold its toothiness. So later on, you'll be able to definitely tell you're biting into bacon. And that is a marvelous special treat. Everything is kind of turning purple, and that's because red cabbage is, you know, it really is purple cabbage. And so we're going to go ahead and cover this, and we're going to let it simmer at the lowest possible temperature for about 45 more minutes. We want this to be really, really tender. You can cook this the day ahead and let it come to room temperature, and then bring it to a simmer again and cook it for another half hour the day that you want to serve it. That's also a wonderful possibility. But in the meantime, we're going to let this really braise, really get tender, and then we'll add the balsamic vinegar just before the end of cooking. All right, our cabbage has been cooking for about 45 minutes, and it has cooked down a lot. Pot's about half full. Very tender. Beautifully combined. Now I'm going to add the balsamic vinegar. Now I'm not going to add as much as I might, because this is not supposed to be sour. It's just supposed to be a little bit sweet and sour. I'm just going to add a tablespoon and stir it around. And then I'm going to let it simmer for another 5 or 6 minutes to give all the flavors a chance to come together and be perfect. So cover it up, and we'll give it a try in a few minutes. All right, we are ready to try our German style red cabbage with apples, onions, and bacon. Let's take a look. Ah, it smells delicious. It's got that gorgeous purple color. It's so lovely. Very bright, very vibrant, look gorgeous on a plate. In fact, I wish I had a piece of schnitzel to go with this. But I'm just going to have to try it by itself. This is a really versatile dish. We're going to really enjoy having this tonight. My husband's going to enjoy it. I know this is one of his favorite dishes. And it's very easy to make. It takes a while, but once you get all the ingredients going, it's pretty much hands off. Whoops. Oh, that's so good. Sweet, tangy, savory. Got those onions, a little bit of allspice flavor, and the caraway gives it a distinctly German note. It's wonderful. It's got bacon, which gives it that wonderful smokiness, and it's not overwhelming. You know, sometimes when you add bacon to something, that's all you can taste, but not in this dish. In this dish, the bacon is a wonderful complement to all these other marvelous flavors. The sort of sweet tart apples, the savory onions, and of course, this tender, perfect cabbage. I know I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to make it again. And I hope you'll give it a try. Please let me know if you do. I'd love to hear from you. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us at Lucy's Kitchen. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and come back next time when we share more delicious recipes from my kitchen to yours.